Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Underground Network, broadcasting live from LA. Underground Network, don't forget to subscribe, youtube.com/Underground Network. We're here every day speaking mostly about Greece and the economy, the euro, the eurozone, and the lies in the media. Today is going to be a short program, but I think I'm going to get straight to the point. Greece again at the center of attention, at least my attention. We've been reading since this morning that Mr. Varoufakis, the Greek finance minister's wings have been Greece just clipped Mr. Varoufakis' wings, says Bloomberg. It's all over the news. There was a reshuffle in his own cabinet, in the head of the person handling the negotiations at the Eurogroup, and so the replacement of this person, who was an ally of Mr. Varoufakis, is basically interpreted in the media as a big defeat for the Greek finance minister. This, of course, comes from the fact that last week at the Eurogroup in Riga, it was like everybody had a really hard stance toward Greece and the Greek finance minister, and especially this was a very, very intense from on behalf of the German side and Mr. Schäuble. So there was a lot of bitterness and a lot of isolation for Mr. Varoufakis at the Eurogroup, and he came back empty-handed without a deal. So that was a big failure according to the media and what everyone is saying. So what we're seeing is sort of, and people are undermining, the media undermining, even probably public opinion, sort of has this feeling that the Greek finance minister has been sort of been targeted and is no longer going to have a say, or at least a strong say, a powerful say in Greece's negotiations. He has been replaced by Euclid Tsakalotos, who is a member, of course, of Syriza, and he is a deputy minister, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yes, he's a deputy foreign minister. So this is the person who is sort of now responsible for what's called the coordination of the day-to-day efforts to strike a deal with creditors. So our new person is Deputy Foreign Minister Tsakalotos, and Varoufakis will be supervising the negotiations. So this is now the role. He will be supervising the negotiations with the Eurozone partners and creditors and member states and the IMF, of course. And apparently, we don't know if Mr. Varoufakis will still represent Greece at the Eurogroup, but apparently there has been a terrible sort of everyone against Mr. Varoufakis. This was the result of last Friday's Eurogroup in Riga. So what another thing that we've been reading, and I've read quite a lot of articles, very, very exhausting, horrible articles. Also watched a few videos, and I'm going to refer to one of them in a minute. But before I do that, Bloomberg has this balanced news kind of article, and it ends with some people like Aristidis Hadzis, who is a professor of law and economics at the University of Athens, who explains this whole change and this whole reshuffle as and he's also referring to a Greek poll. Do I need to mention that the Greek poll was commissioned by this newspaper owned by one of the oligarchs? But anyway, let's mention that Greek poll as if it were a legitimate one. So it's a survey in a newspaper called Protothema, and it says that the government should compromise even if creditors. It says that most people, half of the respondents, so over almost 50% of the people, said that the government should compromise even if creditors reject Greek demands. So basically, the poll says that the people of Greece, basically, they're ready to compromise, and they're good with austerity. That's what the poll's result is all about. This very legitimate poll, commissioned by this very legitimate newspaper. It is one of the biggest newspapers in Greece, yet how legitimate it is another question, because we know that the propaganda is being orchestrated in a way that I think is rarely seen in Greek history. Probably this type of propaganda happened during dictatorships or the Second World War. Anyway, so what Mr. Aristidis Hatsis, this professor of law and economics, said, referring to the poll, he said, the Greek people are absolutely clear. They want to stay in the euro, come what may. Oh, that was the conclusion of this professor of law and economics at the University of Athens. He took a commissioned random poll, and really rushed into again saying that, see, the Greek people want to stay in the euro, and they come what may. So that's like the conclusion of the professor of law and economics. And he also goes on and says they've understood that it will require hard compromises, even austerity. This is one professor interpreting the poll and saying that the Greek people basically want austerity. That's what they want. Great. A name to remember, the professor Aristidis Hatsis, who comes out on Bloomberg and basically talks on behalf of the Greek people, and says that they want austerity. That's his conclusion. Congratulations. Anyway, then the Bloomberg article, of course, gives a little extra note by saying, after wasting 3 months, he puts it in quotation marks, but anyway, basically Greece wasted 3 months, and drying up liquidity in the economy since the election, the prime minister is emasculating Varoufakis. This is a word that was used by PASOK leader, Mr. Venizelos. Who is he? Nobody voted for him. It's a miracle he is still in Greek parliament. But anyway, now the PASOK leader now has also a line in Bloomberg and saying, and you know me, I don't even, particularly, I never really supported Varoufakis, but, I'm trying to be commonsensical here and be objective. All these people who are jumping in to basically speak on behalf of the Greek people, or speak on behalf of God knows whose interest, and here I'm talking about the PASOK leader, Mr. Venizelos, an absolute pro-European political man who has been in politics in Greece for 40 years, if not more, and who his name is involved in so many scandals. This person has a voice, and he's quoted on Bloomberg. This is a disgrace. So yes, so the PASOK leader said that Varoufakis was emasculated. It's great. I mean, the level of politics is beyond is going. Wow, it's incredible nowadays. So anyway, the Bloomberg article, of course, talks about cash reserves in Greece being dried up. But who is responsible for cash reserves being dried up? Of course, the European Central Bank decided that it was not going to give any liquidity to Greece. Ever since February, it stated that, and so it stopped the liquidity. It kind of it keeps bringing up the level of the European, what's the ELA, the emergency liquidity assistance to Greece, and keeps it bringing up just enough to sort of basically keep the country not even afloat, but just sort of like keep it at not completely strangulated, but strangulated nonetheless. So that's what the ECB is doing. So right now, as we know, the Greek government just proposed a decree not yet being agreed on by the municipalities and the local governments, but it basically demands all cash from local governments and municipalities to be all cash to be basically transferred to the Bank of Greece, to the central bank, so that all the deposits of local government are used in what's called, are used in terms of are used as investment. What investment? There is so little cash, and it's really not sitting there and being wasted. It's the cash that the local governments need for to serve their needs. Yet the Greek government, with this decree, demands that all this cash, which is I think the last cash that remains in Greece, be collected and be transferred to the Central Bank of Greece, with the, of course, false, I think, excuse that in turn it will invest in government repurchase agreements. But what this cash is destined to do is basically pay the creditors, namely the IMF, which is due about 200 million really soon. I don't remember when exactly. So things are that's the news. We have a reshuffle. We have a new person, the deputy foreign minister, in charge of basically a new strategy. And what happens when this is announced? Oh, the stock market goes up. So that's supposed to be a good sign, yet everyone's happy, by the way. It looks like a lot of European analysts or journalists are not happy, but are positive. Then I'm reading on Twitter that apparently they're saying that, there's a new team headed by Minister Tsakalotos, this new minister, that met for the first time and agreed to draft a reform multi-bill ready for the deal. So that gave a lot of confidence to the markets. So if the markets are confident and are going well, and if Europeans are happy or happier that they somehow got rid of the big influence of Mr. Varoufakis, should the Greek people be happy? The Greek people don't matter, absolutely not. And let me refer to who said that, because he doesn't even mention them. So this guy called Otto Fricke, he is the former chairman of the German Budget Committee, has a very short interview on Bloomberg, which I think should be watched by everyone, especially if you are Greek. So basically, to all the questions that he's asked, he answers that first of all, politics, Varoufakis, is too much of a professor, and he doesn't know what he's saying and doing, which I don't disagree with. But anyway, I don't agree with Otto Fricke on anything else. He says it from a different angle than the one I've been saying it. But anyway, Otto Fricke says that, Mr. Varoufakis basically doesn't know what the heck he's talking about because he's a professor. And here we're not talking about numbers, we're talking about policies. In theory, I would agree with that too. Yet, those European officials, German officials, they talk about numbers when they want to talk about numbers, and they bring you some charts, and they talk about policies and politics whenever that serves them. And so, they pick and choose. So he said Varoufakis is no good. Basically, he's kind of happy that people got rid of him, or indirectly, smoothly are getting rid of him. I'm trying to just give you what I think is the substance here and what this guy just said on Bloomberg. So Otto Fricke, do we have an issue with sound?
Yes.
We do have an issue.
Just talk.
Okay. So now hold on. I'm going to read some of the messages. But no, let me finish about Otto Fricke. Otto Fricke also says that politics is about lying to the people. And of course, he doesn't even talk about Greek people here. He only is concerned about German electorate. Whenever they ask, which, me as an audience, I think they ask the question and they refer to the Greek people. But no, he answers the question by referring only to the German people and to his own electorate, or to Merkel's constituents, basically. So, he said, politics is about lying. So you have a plan B, but you don't talk about it, or you lie a little bit about it. That way, you can sort of pass it through the parliament. Then the journalists at Bloomberg insist about what is the plan B? And he doesn't answer the first time, but the second time he mentions Cyprus. He says I think a good parallel to look at is Cyprus. So he bluntly says that we're gonna go ahead. The plan B is about basically grabbing people's money from their bank accounts. He said, look at Cyprus. And then again, he is asked, but is this going to pass? And then he says, well, of course, there is a problem with national parliaments, and Germany, there's a way if you sort of explain to the people, and you can blame the other side, then you can sort of pass it. So this man, Otto Fricke, is just giving us a great speech about what European politics at the level of the EU or of Germany are about. The people are not important, not the people in Germany, of course not the people in Greece and Cyprus, and basically we are basically doomed if we really don't pay attention. This guy bluntly talked about, yes, he is a former chairman of Germany's budget committee, and he's only a former chairman, but he probably has some information. He mentioned Cyprus a couple times, if not more, in this 3-minute interview. He talks about lying to the people. He talks about blaming the other. Politics is about blaming the other. So basically, you make believe that, oh, it's not us, it's them, and then in the end, you coast along, and then whatever you want gets passed. So Greek people, watch the interview. Of course, I'm gonna post the link at the bottom of this video. Horrible Otto Fricke. You have these people speaking on TV, and you really wonder if ever one day history or historic retribution, or people are ever going to really expose them and really see what they're saying and what they're talking about. Prokopis says, hi everybody, blah, blah, blah. A lot of friends have joined. The propaganda against Greece, says Prokopis, is unbelievable, unexpected, and unfortunately comes from Greece also. Oh yeah, of course. Primary propaganda comes from Greece. Greetings from Thessaloniki. Johanna says, yes, I believe that Greek people are scared, but that's because all the media are basically against the government and especially any confrontation with the EU. Okay. So that's exactly what's going on. The Greek people are scared, but enough of that too. Greek people are scared. Well, if they're scared, they're done, and that's it. Every people in the world, if they're scared, if they feel that there's no reason for them to continue to exist historically, eventually they will end. Their history will sort of end right there. And a new chapter under, under either some other other authority will start. So if we go if we go on like this as a people and we keep on being scared, I think we're done. Hi Elias. Kat, I follow you on Twitter. Can I have a follow back? Okay, this is my friend who's been following me. Just a little message to you. I'm very happy to follow you back. It's just that it's very tricky, and there's a level where I can communicate with people, but when the boundary is overstepped, I'm not interested in that. And so I'm very, very reluctant in following people back just to be hit by about 100 messages per day. So I'm very happy to follow people back when they're sort of having a right amount of communication with me, because I don't have time to be communicating with everyone. So, but I'm very happy to follow you back if you are able to manage that type of communication. Hello, Paris. Have we seen you before? I'm not sure. Okay, so Morgan, did you receive and read my email? I don't know what email. I know I have not received an email. I don't think I've ever seen you before, Morgan or Nolly. I don't know which one's your first name. So no, I have not received an email. If you've sent me one, but you're more than welcome to send it to me. Maybe it went to my spam. Where is Boomer? They're asking about my dog. So I have some sad news. I mean, Boomer is okay, but he is in pain and his legs are in pain, and I'm taking him to the doctor tomorrow morning before the live. And I'm very, very worried because Boomer can't get up, literally. And some of you have seen, he's a big dog. And so, yes, these are sad news for Boomer. It's been going for a while now, and that's why he's not been around, because he's got trouble walking. Anyway, that was a parenthesis about my dog. But now I'm going to talk about one of the most, I think, accurate or legit articles I've read regarding what has happened, what is going on in Europe. So I met with a friend yesterday, a Greek friend, and he was telling me, oh, it's all about the United States or against Europe, and it's all this fight between the dollar and the euro. And I was like, no, that's not the case, because who is behind the European project? It is the United States. I mean, for those who don't know about this and who want to do some more research, I'm not saying this from the top of my head, I will be dedicating a live program on this specifically, but there has been, there's numerous books that have been written about it. Even the euro is a project put forward by a team at Berkeley, if I'm not mistaken. And if I'm mistaken regarding the university, it's an American team, it's an American university that created the euro, this whole, monetary union. And one of the economists was Professor Mandel, and he actually won a Nobel Peace Prize for a book that he wrote, or for a paper that he wrote, where he mentions that monetary unions cannot work because you can't put different economies together. Yet that is the specific person, Professor Mandel, who created the euro. And he said, I didn't create the euro because I wanted it to be successful. I created the euro because because I wanted, because it was hard to do business with Europe, because every national government had different rules, different laws, and that was unbearable. So we created something just to be able to do business. So anyway, that's only one aspect of the monetary union. So as far as that's one of the aspects why Europe is sort of a construction and inspired by the United States. There are so many other aspects of it, which are starting to be they've been so evident in the last years. The way European EU foreign policy is following US foreign policy is another indicator, but there are so many. But what's interesting regarding the change in the government and the reshuffling of Varoufakis' team is I think, to my opinion, very well analyzed in an article by the Slog, this UK blogger, one of the top bloggers in the United Kingdom, who I think gets it right. There is an internal fight in Europe. There's the ones who kind of are primarily representing American interests more directly, and then there are the ones who are representing more, let's say, German interests, because right now there is a little conflict, if not big, between Germany and the US in the way this, Europe is perceived. So, and this all, of course, has to do with the fact, even quantitative easing is part of this. The fact that Germany wants now to be predominantly to be the country who predominantly decides on European affairs and not have the US sort of interfere. So it looks like there are two sort of camps within Europe, within the EU, and there is, I'm just giving you some leads here, but it looks like there's on one side there's the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, and Merkel, and Alexis Tsipras would be on that camp, and maybe some French would be in that camp too. And on the other side, you have Schäuble and Mario Draghi, the ECB, the European Central Bank's Mario Draghi, Schäuble, and also Jeroen Dijsselbloem, the Dutch finance minister. So these are the two different camps, different schools in Europe. Ones are taking sort of orders directly from the Fed, and those would be, of course, Draghi and co. And the others are sort of want, clear German, old-fashioned type of Frankfurt hegemony and policy. So the Slog writes, and I'll just quote a few important sentences. The German leader, so Angela Merkel, has been giving the Eurogroup a hard time about its stance for several weeks, and the truth is Merkel has always had a more conciliatory tone, saying she wants Greece in the euro. She's seeing Tsipras again and again, and she's nicer, isn't she? So she's like the good one right now. But it seems, says the Slog, that two events convinced her to have the final say. First, advice from senior media and CDU, her party intimates, that Schäuble was storing up bitterness for the future sufficient to kill the whole European project. So Merkel got a little scared that the whole European project is at stake, and so she sort of like pushed Schäuble aside. And second, she didn't like the plotting in Riga. So she says the article says the the Riga meeting gave the finance ministers their day in the sun, but disgusted some of the diplomats involved. So everything was a huge failure, and Merkel was very upset. At that point, the Slog says the geopolitical ripples outwards from this move were being felt everywhere, from Luxembourg to Paris to London to Washington, etc., with the markets. And Jean-Claude Juncker, he has always counted on Frau Merkel as an ally, and he now seems to have been vindicated in that view. So Jean-Claude Juncker, who's always had a softer tone, is very happy with this move. And Jean-Claude Juncker, too, favors a more conciliatory tone towards Greece, having demonstrated publicly his affection, his public solidarity, with Tsipras. So this is kind of a victory for the Commission and for Angela Merkel against the ECB and sort of the American sort of interests. That is what is really going on right now. There's this fight, and I think the reason has to do with, and I'm saying this from a general idea that I have from reading all the things I've read in the past, that America sort of, all these past years was sort of printing a lot of dollars and was buying a lot of euros. That way, the euro was really up. That's why the euro was so strong all these years. All of a sudden, the Fed said, "Hey, we can't print anymore. You guys have to start printing." So it turns to the ECB and says, "Hey, how about some quantitative easing over in Europe?" And that is not what the Germans want, because this is going to sort of devalue their own currency, because let's face it, the euro is a German currency. That's the only country who's really been benefiting from it, and so they're not happy about it. And this is sort of the fight. There is this whole monetary issue here. Now the Americans are kind of happy. They want to change policy toward Europe, so they want a more devalued euro, and that way they can, I believe, probably come here and do business in a better and more profitable way. So, but these are the two different camps. Now, where I disagree with this article is that it says that Germany is going to leave the euro first, blah blah blah, because because whatever, it's not benefit. There's a lot of people are saying this, that it's not Greece who's going to leave the euro, it's Germany. Yes, Germany might leave the euro once it has basically cannibalized every other country within the euro, because that's the only way to survive. I mean, within the euro, it's almost like one person's profits, one person's exports, account surplus is another country's accounts deficit, and that has been the general policy of Germany after the euro. Like all the countries that suddenly were buying all of Germany's exports, they themselves couldn't export anymore, and this whole thing worked like that, and so we are where we are today. So I know I've kind of sort of summed everything up in a very fast and general way, but I don't have the numbers right now in front of me to tell you to back all of the things I said, but I will in the near future. And I've been talking for 35 minutes, and I have to go really soon. Okay, some personal messages here. Okay, Prokopis, Greek people are scared, but they are also fed up from all the bullshit and basically have not that much more to lose. I agree with you, and Prokopis apparently is gone because he's got to go, and I got to go too. Johannes says, problematic Greece's presence spoiled the neo-fascist, neoliberal feast of Riga. Yeah, I mean, we were speaking of, there's people who have hate speech. They hate speech is forbidden. I mean, it's totally, you can be, when you're not allowed to use hate speech, right? And I wonder what's been going on with Greece for all these years. I mean, what do you call that? Every day, whatever I listen to, whatever I read in the media by people, random people who I don't even know, like Mr. Otto Fricke earlier on. What is this if not, anti-Greek speech? One has to start saying this out loud. I mean, this is publicly speaking against a people, and it's every day, many times a day. So I think this is a real issue right now. We should start pointing at that fact really, really soon. The sooner the better. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say for today. Maybe I forgot my last conclusion. So basically this is apparently what is really wrong. There is two different camps in Europe. Ones who are more pro-American and want quantitative easing, devalue the euro, and blah, blah, blah. And then one who is more pro-German, at least for now. They just want to do their own policies. They want to be at the top of they want to sort of rule everybody else, but they don't want any sort of American, the Americans telling them what to do. So I hope you guys have a good night. Tomorrow I will be here with Harry Master George, one of the most important Hollywood coaches. He is a wonderful man of Greek descent as well. We'll speak English, so he'll be my guest tomorrow. He will talk about Greece, politics, immigration, America, probably the euro. I don't know how much he knows about the euro, but he is very political. We're going to talk about Hollywood and the change from old Hollywood to new Hollywood and corporations, corporate Hollywood basically. We'll talk about art, we'll talk about people, and I'm sure we will talk a lot about nature and natural and talent, because Master George's sort of method is a non-method. He believes that everybody can naturally be an actor. It just has to develop a natural capacity that we all have in us. Anyway, that's tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe, youtube.com/underground network. And I will be seeing you tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Thank you for being here. I will post the Slog analysis under the video, and the Bloomberg reference and the Bloomberg interview of Mr. Fricke. But Mr. Fricke, you are despicable, saying that politicians have to lie and we have to coast along in order to pass laws which are basically against the people. And let me recap. Mr. Aristides Kadzis, you are despicable to say and to conclude that people want austerity no matter what. Shame on you for being a professor of law at the University of Athens, and shame on you for being Greek, but that's a detail. We're very used to Greeks speaking against themselves. So we're very used to that. Anyway, have a good night, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.